Welcome to episode 84 of Accessible Finance for Retirement. I'm Eric Johns.
And I'm Rachael Johns.
Let's dive in.
All right, so this is episode 2 in our 3-part episodes of Roth accounts. And so we focused a lot on Roth contributions and some basic Roth
IRA
rules.
Functionality.
Yeah. So today's episode is going to focus on Roth conversions and particularly what kinds of strategies to implement to that end. So the Roth conversion is one of the most powerful Roth strategies that are available. And so the current tax rules, the law, there's a lot of reasons that this becomes particularly relevant. Eric, thoughts?
Yes.
Why?
Why are Roth conversions relevant?
Yes.
Because they are an amazing tool for manipulating your tax brackets and your taxable income and your marginal effective tax rate.
Beautiful. And when we say manipulating, we're talking about legal manipulation, but it is a way to kind of set yourself into certain tax brackets that you may not be in otherwise.
Correct.
All right, so let's first talk about Roth conversion fundamentals. What exactly happens in a Roth conversion?
Got it. Real quick, we're going to just change like what you just
Everything
said.
that I just said,
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
And I just very briefly want to say, if you take nothing else away.
I don't know why I organize anything.
You shouldn't.
I really
shouldn't.
I
You should
shouldn't.
understand that I'm going to wreck it all.
I do.
Sorry. Real quick. If you take nothing else away, I would like it to be this. If you're trying to reduce your tax bracket for the year, you're thinking, I'm going to defer as much to a 401k plan as I can, and I want traditional IRAs. That means I'm not going to pay income tax now. I'll pay ordinary income tax later when I take it out. If you want, on the other hand, you're thinking, hey, wait, this is a pretty good year for us from a tax standpoint. I'm in the 12% bracket.
Yes.
Should I?
And that can be like I retired this year, right? Or
yeah.
it could be I'm switching from full-time to part-time. I'm easing my way into retirement. Or I'm starting a new business and it hasn't really gotten off the ground yet.
Right. You might have losses. That's a perfect time to convert.
Correct.
Great time to convert.
Yeah.
So anyway, Roth is when you want to increase your taxable income.
Yes.
Right. Traditional is when you want to decrease it. That's it. That's all I got.
And
then
to that end, though, I think that, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, but you may be hearing when you want to increase your taxable income, and you're probably like, what? Why would I ever want to do that? And at the end of the day, Uncle Sam is going to get his piece of every single dollar that you have.
Right.
And so realizing income through Roth conversion strategies is one way of telling Uncle Sam, like, I'm going to tell you when I'm paying taxes rather than you telling me through RMDs or anything like that.
That's perfect. That's exactly right. We want to be deliberate and intentional about when we pay our taxes rather than having it thrust upon us in the form of RMDs or just withdrawals from retirement accounts. So that ties in perfectly to your question, right? What exactly is a Roth conversion? Functionally, what happens? What does that even mean?
What are the steps? What does it look
I'm
like?
taking money from a tax-deferred account, typically a traditional IRA, a rollover IRA, or a 401k, right? And then I'm moving that money to a Roth IRA, all right? When I move that money, it is a taxable event, and I pay ordinary income tax at the federal and state level on the total amount of the conversion. I don't pay FICA taxes, but I do pay income taxes on the total amount of that Roth conversion, right? So it's called a Roth conversion because we're taking tax-deferred funds, and we're converting them into a Roth account. So we're taking a tax, like a traditional IRA, and converting it to a Roth IRA. It doesn't have to be a total conversion, though. It can be any part of it.
Okay. So let's say that I have a traditional IRA that has $200,000 in it.
Got it.
I decide I'm going to convert $50,000 into a Roth.
Got it.
That on my tax return then means that I realize $50,000 more of income, correct?
Exactly correct.
And so I'm going to pay, like if I'm in the 24% tax bracket,
Yep.
right? I would essentially pay 24%. Well, we're to assume every dollar is in the 24% tax bracket.
Yep.
I would pay $12,000 on that 50.
Yep.
Right? But if I'm in the 24% tax bracket now, and I expect that down the line, right, I'm looking at some pretty large RMDs down the line.
Sure.
I think I'm going to get pushed up into the lower 30s. I may be comfortable paying at the 24% tax bracket.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So it becomes something where, and the fact that you can do partial conversions rather than all of it leaves a lot of strategy on the table, because you can essentially nearly like down to the dollar
control exactly where the marginal dollar, marginal dollar is being paid,
exactly.
right? Yeah, exactly. So that's frankly what we do, right? Like, so we'll pull up tax software and we will look at exactly where you are and think, hey, maybe this year we should take a little bit off the table because we just, some of it is pushing us over this threshold or into this higher bracket or over this IRMAA limit, right? So that's exactly what you're doing. You're calibrating, right? So Roth conversions are a tool to calibrate your taxable income. We know that deferrals are the way to turn it down, right? By deferrals, I mean you are deferring your salary into a 401k to the tune of $23.5 up to $31,000 a year if you're at 50 or older, right?
Which
so
will
that's the way you can lower your taxable income.
the income you're reporting on your return.
Roth conversions are a great way to increase your taxable income in years, like you mentioned, that your taxable income is artificially low or just simply lower than you believe it will be in the future.
Correct. And it's important. I mean, we have interacted with people who have been quite excited and quite proud of the fact that there have been years that they have been in the 0 or 10% tax bracket. And while that is a wonderful thing, it causes financial planners or professionals who understand the value of Roth accounts to salivate because of the amount of planning opportunities it allows for and the amount of space it allows for to convert a Roth.
Because the issue is this, right? You avoided paying tax in the 0 or 10% bracket, but now what happens? You have all of your money in tax deferred accounts, and then those RMDs, or required minimum distributions, are substantial. And you might be paying tax in the 22 or 24% tax bracket.
When you could have
That's
paid
a
in the
whole
10.
lot more than 0 or 10 or 12, right?
Correct.
So we could have filled all the way up to the 12 and been doubling, right? Like we would have been having the amount of taxation we're going to have on those accounts at the least.
Yes. And one of the things we use, I think, that makes this point really salient for people we work with is a visual that kind of shows the estimated tax brackets based upon what, I mean, you can look at what the RMDs are going to be. There's calculators and things available.
Right.
You can plan out estimated conversions based upon the information you have available. And the name of the game is essentially to try and make those tax brackets, or the tax brackets you're in, your marginal effective tax rate.
Now we're talking.
You're trying to make that line as flat as possible.
Correct.
Rather than, being mountainous.
Correct.
And so you're kind of tweaking all these levers everywhere trying to make that line really flat. So if there is a year where you're paying in the 10, but you know that later on you're going to be paying, 24, 28, lower 30s, we'd love to see that go down and be happy to pay, fill up that 10 bracket for sure.
Exactly correct.
Okay, so excellent. So the Roth conversion allows you to kind of titrate, to really nail down exactly what bracket you want to fill.
Right.
And like you said, you can do that in portions. It doesn't have to be the entirety of your traditional IRA.
It's something that should be continuously evaluated. It's not a all or nothing strategy, and it's not a strategy that even when you implement it, you're not going to say, okay, we're going to convert $50,000 to a Roth from our traditional every year for the next 10 years. That's frankly nonsense. There's no way that things are going to be that stagnant.
Correct.
Does that make sense? There's going to be movement in the accounts. There's going to be movement in your earnings more than likely.
Yeah.
You might have raises that, make it less viable to convert 50. Maybe now it's 40.
Correct.
Right? Because I got a $10,000 raise and I was converting to a specific.
The amount should change purposefully from year to year.
You should calibrate it on an ongoing basis based on changes to tax law, changes to your situation, changes to the account balances and the markets. So.
Right. And something important that we touched on in the last episode is the fact that there are no RMDs from Roth accounts.
Yes.
So if you're worried about getting hit with a huge RMD balloon down the line, you can essentially lower what those are going to be by forcing those distributions now, converting them into a Roth and then no longer having to
Correct.
deal with RMDs from that
Correct.
account.
One of the things it's super helpful, right, is not only with a Roth conversion are you reducing the amount that's subject to the RMD, those funds are no longer growing in the tax-deferred accounts. Now they're growing in a tax-free account, so you're not going to have to pay taxes on the growth.
Right.
Does that make sense? So instead of experiencing the compound growth that we all love,
right,
inside of a tax-deferred account, it's still fine. It's still good. It's not incurring the tax drag. You still like tax-deferred accounts. They absolutely have a purpose, and they're fantastic.
For sure.
We might not love it when the RMDs are going to increase every year.
It feels
by
a little
design.
painful then, for sure.
So as
for
you
sure.
age, your RMD increases just because of the decrease in the denominator of their formula, right?
Correct.
So what I'm saying is simply like if your account, you're going to start out in year one at 73 paying 6%, then it's going to go to 8%, 10% of your total IRA balance, right? So that's increasing as you get older. And then also those accounts you can expect are going to be growing as well because they're likely invested in markets, which we hope go up and to the right.
And history tells us that's
that
what
they
happens.
do. Correct.
So I think the biggest takeaway and what we've kind of really been touching on is the fact that the strategic timing is critical here. And so it allows you to optimize that situation. So if you're retiring at 62, but you're collecting Social Security at 70, you may have 8 years of this kind of artificially low income. And so it's a wonderful time to plan out Roth conversions.
That's exactly right.
And so you've referred to them as like Roth conversion ladders, right?
Correct. Roth conversion ladders is simply the term used to indicate that it's incredibly likely, like we said, we're going to evaluate and calibrate on an annual basis, but it's incredibly likely that if you retire and you're expected to have almost no taxable income from, your early 60s through RMDs or through Social Security elections at 70 or RMDs that start at maybe 73 to 75, then that's going to be a time where you're almost certainly going to want to pursue some kind of a Roth conversion strategy. So the Roth conversion ladder just means you're going to do conversions over a number of years instead of just front loading it, boom, pulling the trigger. I'm going to knock myself up to the 37+% bracket and pay taxes all the way up to the top. That's almost never the right play. You're almost certainly going to want to do it in a measured way over time.
Correct. Because like we were saying, imagine if you're imagining tax brackets like buckets, right? You want to fill up that 10%, and then every drop over that 10% spills over into the 12, and every one over the 12 spills over into.
Because if you can think
15.
about it, like we spoke about earlier, there are clients that or individuals that we've encountered that didn't take advantage of even the 10% or 12% brackets. You can think about it this way: maybe I convert $1 million in a year, and I shoot myself up to the 37% bracket. Okay, so now I'm paying taxes at the 32%, 35%, 37%, 24% even, and then the next year. Where's my taxable income coming from? We just said I'm retired. I have no earned income.
Now I'm in the zero.
Now I'm back in the 10 or 0. I might not even be able to fully utilize the standard deduction.
Yeah.
I've really left some money on the table.
Correct. And I think, as you're planning out these Roth conversions, it's a really delicate situation because every dollar you're able to get into a Roth has huge upsides. Right. But then every dollar that you go over, where this limit is, incurs either a new IRMAA
correct
charge, right, or kicks that dollar and all future dollars above that into the next tax bracket.
Right.
So being able to really hone in on where you're comfortable converting up to and having a rationale behind that is really important.
Right. And one thing,
Don't wing it.
I know we're talking about Roth conversions here, and that's not Medicare. I do, however, want to say that once you hit age 63, assuming you're going to get on Medicare at 65, we want to start thinking about IRMAA thresholds because those have cliff limits, which means if I'm $1 over, then I pay the entire increase in the premium, and it's usually about $100 per increase. It starts at about, let's say, 180, 190, and then it'll go to 280, 290, and then it continues to go up to about 500. So the thought is, hey, look, let's think about very carefully how much we can squeeze into the years before maybe 63, because IRMAA has a 2-year look back, right? So when you're 65. They're looking at your tax return from when you were 63. Okay, and then when you're 67, they're looking at your 65. So you get the idea.
Being a bit more aggressive
Correct. So all else equal, you would, and you want to think about, maybe I can go up a little bit in this year and then avoid IRMAA premiums in the next year. That's what, when we use the term marginal effective tax rate, that's largely what we're talking about. You can use your marginal tax rates for conversion analysis, and that's fantastic. We're just saying also consider things like IRMAA premiums, net investment income tax, Social Security taxation. Those kinds of things are what we're talking about when we're talking about effective tax rate.
Yeah.
We're talking total taxes paid and credits lost by increasing your taxable
that
income.
Can be very, very tricky. We are fortunate to be in a business that we are very familiar with planning software and how to use it to be able to help identify where each of these cliffs are. But for the average person, like knowing where the IRMAA thresholds are, knowing when that investment, it is incredibly complicated.
It is quite tedious and quite complicated.
It's a lot. So don't be shy about reaching out to a professional if these are things that you are worried about.
You would also, never mind. I don't want to derail us into tax legislation, but you would think that they would make efforts to simplify the tax law. The latest changes did not do that.
No. Well, that's true.
We actually either above the line deductions or below the line deductions that are now, it's crazy. You can take sorry.
We had a long conversation about this not that long. I don't remember when it was. But about the fact that the tax code is just wildly inaccessible to the general public, and also is often misinterpreted by professionals in the industry, which is really problematic. And so there were no steps taken to help clarify that, which is great. So it's okay to be a bit gun shy, I think,
it's just a bit confusing is my only point here.
It is.
And it's not getting any better.
It's not a bit. I think it's quite confusing.
Yes.
And so being very intentional about the conversions and understanding the implications of, what we like to do with clients is essentially say, look, here are 3 options that we think are good. Here are the pros and cons of each, and then finding kind of what they're most comfortable with. Because typically there's not one right answer, but there are definitely plenty of suboptimal choices. Okay. So the Roth conversion ladder, Eric, I know last episode we touched a bit on some of the restrictions with conversions that contributions don't have. Can you refresh our memory with conversion?
Sure. Each conversion will have a 5-year clock until you can withdraw the contribution tax and penalty free, right? Actually, it's just penalty free because you've already paid the tax. Correct. You would just pay the penalty, right? So when you convert from a tax deferred account to a tax free account, like a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA, you pay ordinary income tax on the amount that you've converted, right? Then there's a 5-year clock on this conversion. However, if you're over 59 and a half, you can ignore that. And then you can convert and then withdraw the funds from the Roth. You've already paid the tax. There's no penalty incurred there.
Excellent. And so when you're talking about a conversion ladder, for example, very important to keep records of how much you're converting each year, and then knowing when those contribution or the conversion amounts are available for withdrawal. So that's the 5-year rule, which we touched on in the last episode.
Correct.
All right. Any common pitfalls come to mind when it comes to conversion strategies?
Probably the largest is to try huge conversions or outsized conversions immediately rather than taking advantage of small conversions over time, right? And also, that's the largest, I would say, but also underutilizing it, not realizing that it exists or is even as a tool that you can use because of the complexity surrounding it, and kind of, if you're not familiar with this stuff, if you're unsure, when you when you try to move money from your traditional IRA to your Roth IRA, there's big red boxes that come up and it says, did you take your RMD this year? Are you sure you want to do this, right? And how much federal tax do you want to withhold?
They scare you.
And if you're not sure, then you might say, hey, I want to withhold 20% federal tax. And if you're under 59 and a half, well, that was a distribution from your traditional IRA, and now you have a 10% penalty.
That's a really good point.
Right. If you're not, in retirement, or if you are retired and you're under 59 and a half, that's something you actually should contend with. So there are logistical, barriers and perceived barriers to executing the conversions that are kind of intimidating for a lot of people. And as they well should be, because if you make mistakes, like we said, you can't really roll it back, right? So in many cases, you're just kind of stuck with your actions and you have to deal with it. That doesn't change the fact that these tools are fantastic. They're wonderful, and they're an excellent way to increase your taxable income in a way that's viable for your long-term savings, because you're putting the securities that will grow in tax-free accounts.
Yeah, for sure. And, in the example we discussed earlier where you've retired at 63, but you're not going to be looking at Social Security till 70, if you either have the option of those 7 years of conversions, like Eric was saying, so you can repeatedly refill that 10% and 12% bracket. Or if you wait to try to convert or don't even realize that's an option for you till you're 68 or 69, you're left with 1 or 2 years, in which case you're either paying at a much higher rate than you would, or you convert less than you would have otherwise. So being proactive, understanding what it is as early as possible is crucial. And I think, one of the groups that we really like to work with are those who are looking at retiring in a few years, because it allows us to kind of get all the ducks in a row to really take advantage of those prime years where there's so many planning opportunities to take advantage of.
Exactly. There's a lot of tax complexity, and that's interesting, frankly, to me. So I like it.
It is. And it quite frankly has, I think, some of the biggest impacts in long-term, savings of any of the things that we do. Okay, excellent. So nothing else comes to mind for me for Roth conversions. Do you have anything else that we may not have hit on?
No, there are times where it's more advantageous to do than others, right? Like down markets are good. It's kind of like buying stock at a discount because you can get more into your Roth. And if the expectation is reversion to the mean, then you can expect that if stocks go down and you expect them to come back up, then if you convert them when they're down, then you have more of the growth or the rebound, the bounce back inside of a tax-free account. So that's good. No, I think that's about it, right? Okay. So you just want to carefully consider. I think one of the largest things that we try to convey on every episode is we want to be intentional about when we're paying taxes and why.
Always.
Like, why is our rate this today? Should we make it higher? Should we make it lower? Or should we leave it the same?
And I think that is one of the most powerful things, because I know certainly growing up, both of my parents were involved in tax preparation. So growing up, I definitely feel like I was more exposed to just the tax world in general, but it feels very helpless. It feels like you're just stuck in whatever bracket you're stuck in. It's whatever the number is on your tax return. And so it can be really empowering to realize that you can use Roths, you can use traditional IRAs, you can use these tools to kind of play around with those brackets. It doesn't have to be, I made this much money this year, my tax bracket has to be this. There are definitely options and ways to creatively manipulate what that number is. Okay, so then the main takeaways that I have to kind of wrap up for us are that the Roth conversions allow you to transform those tax-deferred savings into tax-free retirement assets, right? So you're choosing when you're paying the taxes on them and changing that classification. Like we said in last episode and this episode, the ideal time to convert would be when your current tax rate is lower than your expected future tax rate. Strategic partial conversions over multiple years, so the Roth conversion ladder, often provides the best tax efficiency because you're able to repeatedly fill in those lower brackets.
Right.
The pre-RMD window offers a really unique opportunity for those conversions, as we would expect the majority of people's income to be lower between retirement and those RMDs.
Exactly.
And then proper planning and professional guidance where needed could help maximize the benefits and minimize the tax impact, because you really only get like one shot at that window and doing it as correctly as possible.
Agreed.
All right. Well, I have nothing else. If you guys have any questions, comments, stories, anything relating to Roth at all, but particularly for this episode, anything relating to conversions, please don't hesitate to send them to podcast@equilibriumfp.com.
Thanks, guys.
Till next time.